Hello.
Oh, these are on. Amazing.
Testing, rug check. Okay.
Hello.
Sibyllus.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Oh, whoa, these lights are really bright. We can't see anyone.
Yeah,
but it's lovely
actually
having
a
you
lot
all
easier
here.
not seeing anybody.
Let's do some brief introductions.
Hey, I'm Jeff Caldwell with Immutable Image. This is great. The last time I was on the stage was in 2018, and it's actually just amazing this week because there was so much theoretical talked about then. I think the topic was actionable NFTs, which basically became utility. And to see it actually manifest is amazing. Immutable Image is simply a new photographic platform we're launching this week on Metaplex, which is on the Solana NFT. And we're committed to just basically bringing the best photographs and photographers into the NFT space. And with that, and do it in a very innovative way, with that creating a collector class that we think the world of photography desperately needs. We're founded by my partner Bjorn Jos. He's a third generation photography family. My family goes back in the photography world as well. So it's a complete passion play for us. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, we've been chatting, and you're an OG in the space. It's really cool, and you've been pushing for photography for a while. So thank you for that. As someone that's a little bit newer in the space. So my name is Silva. I've been a photographer for about 15, 16 years. I've been in the crypto space for about 3 or 4 years. And as soon as I heard about NFTs, it kind of just clicked. Blockchain and art, and the marriage of both is something that I immediately resonated with me. And since early last year, I've been kind of pushing for more photographers to get into the space. I've onboarded a whole lot of people, and particularly photographers, into the space. I created an artist collective called Animus, and we've been working on collaborating and onboarding and advising and helping just a lot of photographers. My first NFT drop was on Nifty Gateway last December, and they said I was the first photographer on the platform, which was very cool. And yeah, that's my story. I've done a few drops on multiple platforms. I will be doing a drop on Metaplex very soon, and that's my story. Let's go to John.
That's awesome. Solana, it's a good choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to see photography on that blockchain, so it's amazing. My name is John Knopf. I'm a landscape photographer. I've been doing photography about 15 years now. I opened my first gallery about 5 years after I started doing landscapes, and then opened my second gallery another 5 years after that, and I've just been rolling with it ever since. I got into NFTs about a year ago, and I got into crypto blockchain around 2012. With NFT photography, we started the first photography collective vault, which was called Photo Vault. We did it with 8 other artists, and we put in, so it was Silva, Ravi Vora, Dave Krugman, Alejandro Carragena, Drift, Casamard, and Ben Strauss. Yes, and what we did is we put them all in a vault, and we fractionalized it and sold it so that people could get in on entry-level collections. And we then moved it over, and we recently merged with Time Magazine, and we're hoping that this is going to be the next catalyst for NFT photography and just getting more publicity towards the where photography is headed. Because if we've all kind of seen where photography started, 15 years ago, it always has kind of been an undervalued art, in my opinion. And with NFTs, it has given a lot of availability for photographers to put their work on the blockchain. So that's what has really, guided me and made me want to use the blockchain for my work.
Awesome. There's so much building in this space, which makes me so excited. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Claudia Pawlak. I'm a photographer based in Toronto. Shout out to any of my Canadians here sitting in the room. I use photography as an extension of myself. I mainly shoot images of scenes that I emotionally resonate with. And from portraits to conceptual photography, I definitely navigate life documenting everything around me. And so I studied photography at Ryerson University in Toronto in 2015. and then moved on to do a master's in arts management and leadership in 2019, where I kind of looked at digital marketing strategies for galleries and museums. And as soon as I graduated and was ready to head off into the world, to start my career, the pandemic hit. And the art world, at least in Canada, was considered a non-essential service, so everything was closed. And so that's when I kind of discovered crypto art and NFTs and blockchain as I was kind of lurking around online. And so I kind of stepped into this space in November of last year, and then didn't start minting my own work until January. And I remember looking for photography during that time, and I remember you would type in photography into OpenSea, and there was very few NFTs that came up. And so I'm so happy to be sitting here with this amazing panel and to learn that there's so much building going on in the space and so much work being minted in the space, because we are photographers, we're making work, and NFTs are another avenue to distribute that work. As photographers, we have prints, photo books, and NFTs are just a whole new world for us. And so that's what I'm working on now. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Very cool. Yeah. So now that we've all introduced ourselves, I wanted to ask you, Jeff, it seems you've been in this space, for a little bit longer. We've been trying to figure out what was the first photograph that was minted, and you said that you minted a photo of yourself on.
Oh no, I'm not taking credit for that.
Okay.
No.
No. We didn't say it was yours, but we've been looking, and I have a friend who minted a film negative and all of this stuff last year, but obviously there has to have been something before that. Yeah. And you mentioned your story.
Well, I was saying photographs were being uploaded and minted at the 2018 conference, the Cred Coin, which the founders of this conference helped put together. So we were uploading pictures of ourselves. So you can say that was a photo. So I'm a winter surfer, so I uploaded a picture of myself surfing in the snow. So I thought that was cool. But that's not the first photograph.
No.
But it's a very interesting question, actually. What is the first? And I would say, what's the first quote unquote serious photograph, or a piece of art as photograph uploaded? If anybody has that answer, you should find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I
would like to know that as well.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It's really interesting because if you look through the history of photography, it's just something that anytime even when it came in, it created this rift between painters and photographers, because then before photography you needed a realist painter to come and and paint the whole scene, and that was the only way that you could have a representation of the visual world. And then photography started, and then we're like, is it art? Well, you're having a machine do it. And I feel like photography has always gone through this thing where is it art? Is it art? And just multiple times it's just proven itself to be art. And when I came into this space, I had the same kind of struggle where I was trying to apply to all of these platforms as a photographer, and no one would ever listen to me. So I just went on this tirade on how photographers needed to have a voice in this space, and that photography was art. And eventually people started listening, and there's been a few projects along the way that I think have marked it. And we wouldn't be able to talk about NFT photography, we wouldn't talk about Justin Aversano and his Twin Flame series. I don't know if he's here, if he's around, but he's a good friend, and I think that series has kind of really put photography NFTs on the map. And obviously he just did his big auction, and it went incredibly well. And if anyone's familiar with his story, he traveled all over the world and photographed twins all around the world, because he lost his twin brother, and he did this beautiful film series. And it's crazy. I was looking up one of my tweets from last year about NFT photography, and one of the first replies was Justin Aversano asking, hey, do you think I should, he's like, I have a really interesting series. Should I mint this on Rarible? Should I go on OpenSea? I was like, whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I think, that's one of the reasons we went through the same thing. Our first artist we were working as kind of a consultancy management, Walter Yost Jr., famous Michael Jordan print, some of the top sports photography of all time. And found some homes, but it was quickly we wanted to do our own thing, and a lot more artists approaching us, and the dearth of a photographic-centric platform, and there's room for a lot more. But to the question, is photography art? That yes, and and I don't think, and the conflict between painters and artists, I think in the NFT space, the conflict's going to be between the traditional artists and the digital artists. And I think photography has a space. Claudia and I were talking in the green room, and we were saying, photography in and of itself, like, somehow has NFT in its DNA from its inception, because it's already taken and then it's transposed onto, you capture in a moment and then it's transposed into different mediums already from the very beginning, whether it's a print or a poster, and now it just happens to be an NFT. And you take a look at all the generative NFTs, which are fun and fantastic. A photograph creates all those traits the moment it's captured. The time, location, the history of it. I mean, you can't, you go back to the archives and the famous photos, you can't get those moments back. So I just think photography and NFT is just such a perfect, just a perfect fit.
Yeah, and to add on to that, and I love that we had that conversation, I even like to parallel it to analog photography and the negative, the film strip. So I'm very much an analog photographer. And I love how the film strip is very much kind of like a blockchain in its own way. You have a chronological order of the images right on that film strip, and maybe you have the data, the EXIF data imprinted right into the negative, or perhaps the number of the frame. And so there's really interesting connections we can make all the way back to film photography, to digital photography and NFTs, and there's so many connections there. And I think if we as photographers kind of work around that concept and work with it, I think we can make really amazing things.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at digital photography, it has been an NFT since the early days. Windows XP, the Windows backgrounds. They've been entertaining our eyes for the last, 25 years as backgrounds on wallpapers, screensavers, phones, everything. And when you think about that and you look at the NFT space, when I got in January, photography was not selling. It just wasn't. There was no space for it. I was in rooms, photography rooms, and everyone said, don't put your photography on the blockchain. It won't sell. You're going to fail at this.
But please put it on Instagram for free.
Right. Throw it up on Instagram. That's no issue, because exposure will pay your bills.
Right.
But the likes are going to pay your bills, and all that's going to work. But the blockchain is not for photography. So when I got into the space, I talked to tons of photographers. We're putting up our 3D art. We're animating. And I got in and I said, I'm going to animate my art. That's the route I'm going to go. And I tried to animate. That was not going to happen. So I spent a couple of months trying to figure out, where is photography in the space? How is it going to adapt? And I decided where I was going to go with it was just put still photography. I was just going to go for it, mint my work on the blockchain. If it didn't sell, that's okay. I could live with that, because the idea of putting my work on the blockchain, maybe it'll age like a fine wine, and maybe it'll just sit there and someone's going to come across and say, oh my God, this was minted in March of 2021. This is an artifact. And I think when we look at photography in the overall space of how it's moved, in the last 50 years, or it always has been considered not necessarily art, because I've had galleries. People walk in, they look at the picture, and they go, I could shoot that. I could shoot that with my iPhone.
Yes.
And that's been a big problem of, it does that undervalue photography, having everybody with a camera. And I've always been under the impression that no. Everybody having a camera makes us look a little bit different. You can separate the amateurs from the pros. And I believe that everybody having a camera only brings more value. And with the NFT space now opening up and showing, I don't know if we could talk about Kath Smart's sale.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that was a 100 East sale. Her image was one of the most stolen images in history. You can Google it. And she sold that for 100 ETH on the idea that once it was sold, you could have the complete, the rights to it. You could do whatever you want. You could print it. You could put it on backpacks, whatever you want to do with it, because she had the idea that provenance is more important in the NFT space. And when it sold for 100 ETH 24 hours later, for $400,000, I think that proved a really good point, that provenance is the most important thing when it comes to photography, because as much as this image was stolen, nobody cared about that, because what we cared about was the idea that now everyone's seen it. It's given so much value. And when we discuss NFTs, it's like, the Mona Lisa. Does it devalue it that we're selling the posters in the gift shop?
Right.
No, it gives it more value because now everyone sees it. So when you're looking at NFT photography, I personally believe that is going to be one of the biggest stories in the NFT space, and one of the most undervalued stories, because we've been fighting an uphill battle since the beginning. And I believe that NFTs are going to provide the space and the value that we've always earned and deserved.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. You're talking about the difference between a good picture and photographers and photographs. We talk about this all the time, and we have a huge circle of tons of people, and it's amazing to talk to people that are working photographers, that you see them with 500,000 Instagram followers, and you're just like, holy shit, they got it set. There's no economy for them. So I think our job is to create an economy, not just to sell photos, but to inject a whole new economy into the photographic world, which desperately needs it, which is basically supporting visual storytelling and getting back to the essence of what real photographers and real photographs is, which is they're visual storytellers. And we will win if the photo shoot gets funded for the NFT that has no brand, that has no sponsorship, that it's purely for storytelling. And guess what? The photographer is going to make as much, if not more, money with those photographs, and they still own the rights and can do whatever they want with it in the traditional world. That's where we're at.
No, 100%. And you don't have to do a collection. You could do one of ones. You can do anything. We can experiment. And that's what's so beautiful about this space. I mean, you can put your black and white photography if you've never put that up there. You can do anything. And I think that's what gives us as artists so much value and so much freedom. Because as we do make money in the space, that's going to give us the financial freedom to be able to experiment and really do whatever we want to do. And even if you're not making any sales in the NFT space, which it could take years. It could take forever. You may never do it. I want to emphasize this more than ever, that you are a photographer. You are an artist. You are one of us, and you always have a seat at our table no matter what. And it doesn't matter. As long as you are passionate about what you do, continue to do it.
Absolutely. No, that's beautiful. Very
I
exciting.
had to say that.
Thank
I had to throw that in there. So I'm a little drunk from last night, so
There we go.
kind of had to go on a little rant.
Speaking of visual storytelling, and I think you hit on a lot of really interesting points there. And one of my absolute favorite photographers in this space, and in all, Claudia and I, we spoke about him, is Alejandro Cartagena.
Yes.
He's an incredible photographer, and when you speak to him, he's like, yes, I've been struggling to fund all of my projects for all of these years. And he has this really amazing story that he lives in Mexico, and the city where he's at commissioned him to do a project on transportation. And they just told him, yeah, we need to do something on transportation. And he was walking around with his film camera, just trying to figure out what was going to happen. And he said he walked over this overpass, and he was with an analog camera just looking down, and he realized that it was an interesting perspective. And he would kind of time whenever a car passed by, he would just snap a photo. And when he went and developed it, he realized in one of the photos, it was like a pickup truck, and there were people going to work, and he had this overview angle of people going to work in this pickup truck. And he noticed, he came back to the same spot, and he noticed there was a pattern, and he just started focusing on these people going to work. And this series just sat for a while. He didn't know what to do with it. And he learned of NFTs, and he released a series of, I believe it was 50 photos.
Yep.
And he called it Carpoolers. And he put the whole series on Foundation, and it's one of the most beautiful series because it tells a story, but it's also extremely cohesive. And it was one of the best selling photography series ever. And now he's his brain has kind of switched to work in this new modicum of like NFTs, and now he's already done 3 or 4 series. And the very interesting thing about him, he just he comes from an art background, so he just thinks differently, and he's done all of these galleries in the metaverse that are just very interactive, and you see the cars and you see all of the things, and I highly encourage everyone to see Alejandro Cartagena's exhibitions on I think Somnium Space, but he's one of my favorite people, and I know we share that love for him. So
no, I should. He's a pro. What he did with his whole collection was absolutely incredible, and how he curates his collections. Because I have trouble curating my own collection. I take landscapes. It's like I take them. They're pretty. This is what I do. I don't know how to curate that. It's like sunsets, mountains. This is But he finds these ways to curate these just incredible collections, and he brings the story to them. Couldn't agree more. I think, honestly, when we're talking about collections, Alejandro is a leader in the collection type series. I mean, it's beautiful.
Absolutely,
what he's done.
and I'm so happy that you brought him into the Photo Vault
Absolutely.
series. And I want to just real quick go back to the Photo Vault, because it was one of the first photography projects that used the blockchain technology in an innovative way. Right, and as you mentioned, you grab the vault of some of the biggest photographers in the space, people whose floor for their project for the NFTs is 10, 20 ETH, and there's a lot of people that want to collect photos from them, but they have no way. Right, the entry level is really high, and by fractionalizing the ownership of it, you allow people to get in, an affordable price point, and it's a very special thing because you create community around the ownership.
Yeah, but we can also, instead of fractionalizing a single thing, we can also open it up. I mean, it's one of the reasons we're working with Solana is also there needs to be a wider collector class. For sure, there's a market for the high end 101s, 105s, 110s. But if we want to really bring in a large, we're working with Canon actually, specifically so we can reach their larger audience, coming up with different ideas. But having higher volume, lower cost, it's still limited. But it's the open edition model of photography. I think that is going to be a game changer in our field. So it allows people to really get great, to participate. Because right now, if you're in the real world, you want to buy photography, you can buy a book, or you can walk into a gallery, and 99.9% of us can't go buy what's in the gallery. But if you want to start falling in love with photographers, both big name and the emerging artists that are so good that are right there, I think that's going to be get a $25 NFT, a $50 NFT, and maybe it's just to have and to own because you love it, and that's a fine investment. Or, some of those are going to, go to the moon.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah.
Pac had a really good tweet yesterday. He was like, "Why higher numbered editions?" He's like, "Because you can't party with just one collector." And I thought that was just really cool.
I think the only issue with limited editions, in my opinion, and maybe this is only me, but I have the issue because I can't sell my stuff for at a cheaper cost. And the only reason I can't do that is because I've worked the last 15 years to collect my images. I climb mountains. I do really stupid shit to get my images. Apologize for the language, but I risk my life. I do really dumb things to try to get what I, have captured over the years. So it's hard for me to part with my work for like 0.5 ETH or something, and if it's a one of one or something. And the only reason I have this problem is because when I came into the space and I saw what was happening, I saw images getting picked up for 0.5 ETH and they're getting flipped for 10, 20, 30 ETH. That's Web 2. That's not Web 3. The idea is for the creators to be able to make money, to be able to sustain a living. If we're going to sell our work so that collectors can make money off of our work, that is not the idea or the world that I want to live in. The idea that I want to create is that the artists get the money. The artists get to sustain their life, to be able to eat. So if we're selling our work at 0.5 ETH and not collectors flipping it for 5 ETH, we're getting 10% of that, and that's not worth it for me. And unfortunately, as artists, we've always been undervalued. And Web3, it's not going to allow that. And I think that if we're going to sell one of ones, and we're going to sell it, no matter what you want to sell it. I mean, in some countries, 0.5 ETH is incredible. It could feed you for 10 years. But in other countries, unfortunately, that doesn't work. And we do have to be able to eat. And I believe as photographers, as artists, we do have to value ourselves. And therefore, if you want to sell your work at 0.5 ETH, by all means do that. Please, I encourage it. However, don't let any collectors or anybody tell you that your work is worth less than what you believe it is worth. Sell your work for what you believe it is worth. Sell it for $1 million, $10 million, whatever you believe. Everyone said I was crazy when I minted my work for 23 ETH. Everyone said I was stupid. Mm-hmm. Photographers reached out to me and said, "You're bringing down photography. We need to bring people in. And you can't sell their work for too much because you think you're famous." I didn't do it because of that. The reason I sold it, because I wanted people to see that photography can sell for anything. Let's go. Awesome. And we love the cats.
One last thing that I want to add on to that is if any photographers are sitting in the room, which I'm sure there are many, never change your style, your work to fit to a specific platform or a specific collector's taste. Just do you.
Well said.
Yeah.
Amen.
And yeah, I think we're just about out of time, and this was very short. Hopefully, NFT.NYC gives us a little more time next time.
Yeah.
Next
But
year,
you
we're
can
going to
reach
have a
out
big
personally
stage.
to any of us, and
Yeah.
you know we'd be happy to talk about this anytime, John. And we
Always.
host a lot of spaces and a lot of open
Great
forums.
meeting
Next
all you.
year,
This
we
was-
will have
this
a
is so
huge
much
stage.
fun.
This is
2
amazing.
hours.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
For having
Thank you
us.
so much.
As they
NFT
were saying,
photography.
let's go LFG.